I was talking to Huskers X's and O's. I just want to say his name. I don't know if he greenlit us. Sometimes I like stumble over it, but anyway, you see Dave Merritt Senior reaching out to Cam Taylor Britt over Twitter. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
hey, get my number from Coach Rhule. We have some things to talk about ASAP. I'm like, man, come on, man. You coach in the NFL. Like, this isn't a new thing. Like, stop being attention seeking. Like, let's just go to work, man. Like, that's like the 15th thing on social media that he's posted. I'm like, I'm hoping Junior is a little more low maintenance than this. Although I did see the Lincoln, what's good, hey Nebraska, what's good, which is
Yeah.
fine. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really get into that, and I don't know
That's fine.
Junior well enough to like formulate any opinions, but I always gravitate towards low maintenance, and you don't need people to talk to you to function at a high level. Like those are my key indicators for college success. So I'm hoping like, come on, let this just be a phase. get get to Lincoln and
Yeah.
let's go because it's Nebraska and Bama. I mean, let's be honest.
For Dawson.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, no, that and like I mean that's a good conversation to be in. Was it Brock Scholl was the other one? It's Nebraska and Auburn.
Yeah.
For
It
him
was
that
it
he
was I'm telling you, that weekend was pretty good.
yeah.
That weekend was pretty good.
All of a sudden too, I know Dave Sanders Jr. was there. David Sanders Jr. was the kind of the highlight of that recruiting visit trip, but all of a sudden it seems like Nebraska might have a chance there as well. But going back to the low maintenance thing a little bit, I was talking yesterday while you were dropping Caleb off that I think that's
off. I wish that's what it was.
I mean getting them all situated.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that the coaching staff likes the most about Caleb. Obviously, he's got a certain level of ability, but like that's a dude that just strikes me as super low maintenance.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that to me is going to give him. I also called you and him both psychos yesterday. Just
Why? What? Why?
Because you both like returning punts, and that's psychotic behavior.
Oh yeah, he's all. So, in his defense, he doesn't know any better. Like,
yeah,
I mean, since he's been like, he doesn't. It's why he's a Carolina fan. It's why he likes, I mean the Panthers and the Steelers and he didn't know any better. And the only school that I didn't do, or the only team I didn't do that with him with is Nebraska. So his habits and kind of, he runs into things at a high rate of speed because he's done it his whole life, right? He just doesn't. It's just normal, right? I mean, so he can be a psycho. It's my fault.
Well, yeah, at least he comes by it honestly. But I was just talking about how anybody who really enjoys returning punts is like a little bit nuts.
Yeah, it's very, very. So especially, I don't know if I could be as good. Not that I was. I don't know if I could be as adept at catching so many punts now as then because punters are so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, these guys will drop this thing on the 4, they'll spin it backwards. They can, it's like they can kick it like using a sandwich, like directionally. Punters are pretty talented and they have huge legs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're kind of like working their short game out there like golfers. Like they're like 100 yards in, they're just kind of putting it wherever they want.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I was went to a couple guys on our team, Anthony, DJ, and not DJ, Fudge, that's Dad. Anthony, Teddy, and JQ, all had their graduation party at the same time. So, Tristan was there, and we were just talking about punting, and I was talking to his parents, and he's like, he's in the phase 2, and it's just interesting with kickers. They're such perfectionists at their craft that sometimes you almost have to like know when to. It's not really Kenny Rogers. You don't want to fold them, but it's like back it back down, take some deep breaths, and get away from a while. It's like they're always constantly working on their craft. You ever see special teams guys, like even in the offseason and they get a ball in the hand, they just like can't help but to kick like 50 or 60 balls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you don't see running backs doing that. You don't see wide receivers doing it. You just don't. Like if they're playing, if quarterbacks and wide receivers are playing catch, like it's not as intense as like kickers driving footballs all the time with their foot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is a very, but it's also, it's like one of the only things they can do. Like, you know what I mean? Like they can work out and whatever, but most
Oh
other
yeah, that's
positions,
a good point. That you sound like Hurrdat right there. Like I used no, so full that's funny you say that. So full disclosure, like I would get on him sometimes about like just being super meticulous. And I was like, it's the baseball creeping in or whatever. And he's like, blankety blank blank, bleep, 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 you, bleep, 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 kick your rear end in Nintendo hockey, bleep, 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 bleep. What else do you want me to do? I'm a kicker. Like that's always how he would end it. You know what I mean?
yeah, like if you're
I was
if
like,
you're
"Oh,
running
you get
back,
some reps in at receiver. You got a good arm. You can play QB." And he just, he was, my man was intense.
yeah, like if you're a running back, you can work on like your pass pro. You can work on different types of reads. You can work on receiving out of the backfield. You can work on cuts. You can work on footwork. Like you can work on a ton of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Wide receivers, same thing. Like corners, quarterbacks, whatever. You can all work on a ton of stuff. If you're a kicker, you're basically just doing the one thing, right? Like you don't have a lot of other options if you
Yeah.
want to get work in. And I feel like that personality type skews a little OCD
Uh,
in terms of the kicking game. And
yeah.
so they're gonna get work in,
Mhm.
and there's only so much they can do, right? It's just, hey, this is what it is. That's why they can treat those things like a pitching wedge now and land it at the 2.5 and spin it back to the 4 and call it a day.
Oh, it's like Tupac said, man, I ain't mad at you. I get it. I do. I just think it is I would like to see special teams find a way to become more relevant other than just, you know, place kicking. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want the return game to be a thing. I want kickoff coverage, and it's listen. It hasn't been great with Nebraska the last handful of years. So as we tinker with the rules to bring the return game back, which is where this whole of the game to impact the game, right? And it's
Yeah,
pure.
it is being average at special teams good enough this year?
No,
Okay. How would you describe them last year? You describe them last year as average or
Av-
below average?
probably average,
Okay.
right? If you weigh out the start versus remember Bushini hit a stretch for like 5-6 games. He was unbelievable, and then kind of tailed off.
Mm-hmm.
Alvano started slow, then he got hot, then he was kind of down the stretch. The return game was poor.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably like if I was gonna give special teams a grade last year, probably been a C minus. I'd say average to a little subpar, but not.
Okay.
I wouldn't go as far as to say
Bad. Not like flat out bad.
no. But it definitely is a pause for concern this year though.
Mediocre. Is
It's
that a
got to
fair word?
yeah, it's got to be better than average at the end of the day.
So
'Cause I think they're gonna play a lot of close games.
you've got Barney, obviously, looks like a guy that they like for returns.
Yeah, I
Um,
would like right now at first blush, I would probably say it'll be some combination of if you're talking like kick return, punt return, I would say it would probably be some combination of Barney, Nation, Ramir, and Ives.
mhm.
Two of those guys will be kickoff returners. The other two will be your top two punt returners. Probably some combination of those four.
So let me ask you this, and this is sort of Caleb related, sort of not. It's kind of something I've been. You've probably seen it on the prep sheet for like a month. But so they were real adamant about trying to giving at least Caleb the opportunity to get down there early because it made like a month's difference in when he'd be able to start working out, right?
Yep. Actually, like getting in the workouts versus starting the session, It's saved about it's 20 some odd days. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because I've been really curious about sort of the stages of development that guys go through in the off season.
Hmm.
Obviously um, we've seen some really like non-linear stuff from certain guys, where like the wide receiver room's a really good example of this, where you had Jaden Doss last fall got off to a really good start in terms of where he was at compared to the rest of the room. And it seems like maybe he's progressed at a slower rate, whether it's injuries or whatever. I know he dealt with the hand thing for a while and everything else, but it seems like he's progressed at a slower rate than, say, like a Jalen Lloyd, who
Hmm.
has sort of taken off in the off season and towards the late end of last season. And so, like, I guess how much difference can a month make? And I'm not trying to dismiss it. I'm genuinely asking, like, how much difference can that month make for a guy like Caleb, or anybody for that matter, when you're trying to get in the off season and you didn't enroll early, but you get this extra month that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise?
Well, I think it's a lot, but it depends on what you're dealing with. So, like, let's just say you're working with Doss and Lloyd. Well, going in, remember what did I always say about Doss? Doss was the most game ready.
Hmm.
Reminds me of Rex Burkhead coming out of high school. He was going to be a 7 or an 8 the whole time, right? Like
Hmm.
he had a certain ceiling, but his floor was good enough, more than good enough to be able to contribute early. He was the most polished. Now, did he have the upside talent wise of like an Aaron Green? No. The upside or the talent of like an Amir Abdullah? I don't think so. So when you're talking about progress in the off season, for like if you're Rex, it's more fine tuning. Hey, what are the nuances? What are the intricacies? For Amir, it would be like, where's the polish? Like,
Hmm.
where do I actually turn potential talent into actual on the field production? That's the same with Doss and Lloyd. Doss was already a very accomplished route runner. I thought he had a college body.
Hmm.
Um, he just was more of a natural receiver. So if he was going to be a 7, it was important with him to be a 7. The thing with Lloyd is if Lloyd came in like a 5 or a 6, he had the ability to be a 9, right? He could stand to get a lot bigger.
Hmm.
He could really work on his route running. He could really work on his hands catching. So sometimes it's as simple as how much room do I have to grow
Hmm.
versus how good am I right now? And we see it in the NFL all the time. Some guys, like Cooper Cup is going to be. Let's use Nakua. Nakua is going to be Nakua from the minute he's at the door because his ceiling is capped,
Hmm.
right? So what you see is what you're going to see. A guy like Worthy, the reason he's so tantalizing is because he's just getting started.
Hmm.
Now, the key for development is where are we and how do we get them there? Because if remember Bo uttered the infamous line, we got to get more ready-made guys. And then people say,
Hmm.
"Oh, we can't develop." But Bo was to the point where like I think I can win games. I want guys that can play so I can teach, right? My teaching will allow them to next level because I'm pretty smart. And he was.
Hmm.
So it was hard for him to go higher level with, kind of his bracket coverage and two gapping and how he wanted to play it. If physically you weren't at a certain place, because then you have to develop and you have to teach, and it just didn't always correlate into being able to high end guys like right now. So I think the key is what's your margin for error while you're waiting for guys to develop. If you're going to get raw prospects and develop, you better have some guys in the meantime or plan a way that you can hold it down while you're getting them to high end. You don't want a lot if you're a development program, you don't want a lot of low floor guys,
Hmm.
but you can roll the dice on a lot of high ceiling guys, if that makes sense. Because while you're developing, you still need to be able to rack up W's. If you bring it back to like, let's say you asked about Caleb real time, I've always said this. is he's a blank slate, right?
Mhm.
He's never really trained. It's scary, right? He's never really trained to play football, right?
Right. Because never had an off season.
Never had an off season, never really lifted, never really ran track, never really, worked on running form. He just was out there, just whatever, right? So when
Mhm.
you look at a guy like that and you pit him against, who'd be a good example? Some more of a natural, like a Boodle,
Mm.
right? Who's grown up a DB. Um, you're comparing ready made versus what he's gonna be. And in the meantime, you have to coach both types of guys, right? That's the difference between resigning yourself to like a developmental program and getting guys that are really, really good already.
Mm.
Because you're guys that are really you're 5 stars, like you're fine tuning, you're not really developing, right? Those
Right.
guys are kind of, for the most part, five. I won't get into fours because that's way more subjective
Yeah, that's
than
a
five.
crapshoot on what they are,
You,
honestly.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think depending on where you are emotionally, a month is it, like for instance, let's say you're highly talented at your job, but you just need a little bit for the know-how. Okay, what's the protocol? How does this work?
Mhm.
They hired me to be a natural, but how do I fit in with? You may need the first couple 2 or 3 weeks just to get acclimated to the work environment,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but if you're not, let's say you got tremendous work ethic and you're pretty malleable with your personality and you can fit into most environments, maybe you need to fine tune a few of your skill sets.
Mm.
So
For sure.
you know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
depends on where you are. But in that program, with what they do, like I said, I'll shoot you the schedule with what they do on a daily basis. A month is huge. Uh, uh, uh,
Yeah.
a month is like, you got to remember. Yesterday he was in school,
Yeah. Like literally act like
like
he's in class.
literally. Yeah, he's in class. So
Yeah.
that I'd rather get that month out of the way and go get the workout in versus reporting on June whatever and not really getting acclimated until June 13th. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because I think you're seeing what you talked about kind of in real time with the guys they've recruited in the first couple classes versus some of the guys that you see them involved on now, whether it's like a Brock Scholl or a David Sanders or whoever, TJ Lateef, a high 4-star just got invited to Elite 11 camp or whatever. So you have to be able to. I think maybe that's where people, because it's a different skill set as a coach, right? To be able to take a raw athletic guy and develop them into a football player, and taking a nearly finished product and fine tune them into a football player. Like those are different skill sets,
Yeah.
and being able to do both isn't super common, I don't think.
Yeah, and the funny thing is watching this thing from behind the scenes, and these guys are super dark, Robbie. Oh my goodness. Watching this from behind the scenes and figuring out how the sausage is made, even how they built the facility
Mm-hmm.
with recovery and flotation devices and emotional stimuli, where they have all these pieces of equipment with like electrodes and listening to music and how to deal with stress. Like, even as you're building all the toys in your lab, it's super important to figure out who you're dealing with.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
I'm getting this type of player. They have these type of skill sets, but we really need to work on this here. How can we supplement it? We'll do the rest. How can we supplement where they're not good? It's like, if I was a coach, I would hire I know the kinds of personalities I would hire, because I want people that can accentuate my strengths and make up for my deficiencies.
Mm.
Right? That's the same way you try to build your staff and your facilities when you're recruiting. You want to accentuate their strengths, and you want to work on where their perceived weaknesses are. If that makes sense.